Welcome to this presentation on BlueWorx Support Pack 12 Release Highlights. I'm Craig Bennett and I'm the Product Development Manager for BlueWorx at Essentia. I'm joined today by Carl McGowan. Carl takes the lead for many of the BlueWorx engagement in terms of pre-sales and solution architecture. Welcome to Support Pack 12, Carl.
Hi, and thanks, Craig. Welcome to the BlueWorx users and customers. I hope you enjoy seeing what we've delivered as much as we've enjoyed creating it. You'll see a lot of things that have been developed specifically for yourselves, and hopefully you also see some things that you didn't know you needed and now are excited about getting. I know there's a number of customers who are lining up to get the support pack and have some view of what's coming in it. So this will also provide you a bit more detail and functionality that's going to be delivered. So Craig, if you want to get into it, and let's see what's in there.
So our target audience for this session are customers and partners who already have a working knowledge of BlueWorx and will move through it at a reasonable pace. But if you're new to BlueWorx, then I'm sure you'll gain some valuable insights into how it can work for you as well. We'll start with a recap of the roadmap process before moving through some key areas of improvements in this release. There's over 40 improvements and 8 new innovations in the release. That's too many to meaningfully cover in this session, but all are documented in our release notes and online documentation. What I would also say is that in the release, there's a lot of extensive work that's occurred in a few specific areas, like improvements to master data generation, config profiles, XML Export and Import, and the crew functionality improvements. So that will be the focus, or a large focus, for what we go through today. In the description section of this video, there'll be quick links so that you can jump through the main agenda topics as you like. I'll be demoing those items that have a green header and just talking through some of the others. So roadmaps. We released the roadmap for the support pack back in May. As with previous roadmaps, it detailed those improvements and new features that we were targeting. In every support pack, there are also items that get added and some that get deferred. So there's a few items on the bottom of this list that didn't make it, but there's a few called for by you that weren't on the list that did. So the first thing to discuss is that we've delivered a better way in which to export and import your inspection configuration. The CSV file export and import is still available, but the new method is focused on taking one or more inspections in their entirety and moving these into another system. So that reduces the likelihood of errors in the export and import process and supports a better control over the inspection editing process. Let's go and take a look at how that works. So I'm in the administration application and I'm going to go into maintain the inspection templates. I'm going to just drill into this sample inspection and I can see there's an inspection with a group of questions. It has some object configuration. It makes use of one rule and it also has translation values. If I move back out to the list, there's a new option down the bottom where I can export the inspection. Now, that exports it into a file format called XML, which is really well suited for taking this sort of relational information and transferring it off to another system. It is basically human readable, but it's not something that you would manually go and edit. So there's a lot of data there just from that one export. You don't necessarily need to know what's in there. It's just gone and done all the hard work for you. If I go and pretend that I'm now on another system, so maybe I was on my test system and I've gone through, done all my testing, and I've now approved that and I'm moving up to production, and then I can import one or more inspections. So I select the file, and it gives me a view of the data to be imported. So you can see that there is the inspection header, the two objects that we saw in the list, a translation value, single rule, and the question group and individual questions. There's also down the bottom of the list answer group values and notification templates that got referred to by the inspection questions. And you'll also notice that over on the right-hand side that none of these have been flagged to update. That's because it automatically sensed that the version that was in the system, since I did an export from this very same system, is actually as up to date as this incoming value. So it's saying if you want to overwrite it, then you have to manually go and do it. If it sensed that it was not as up to date, then it will mark these for import. Carl, I know this has been a hot topic for some of our customers. What's your thoughts on this functionality?
Yeah, this has been specifically requested by a number of customers. The main use case we're expecting this to be used for is the process of moving complex or multiple inspections from a QA or test system into production. So we've got customers that have got very complex inspections or a large number of inspections for which they create them in a non-production system, do their testing, and once they've finished testing, migrate them to the production system. It was always complex to move just a few because of the CSV download upload process required you to manually figure out the dependent records. This does that for you automatically. It also gets around some of the issues we had with CSV files. If you had embedded images, those embedded images were creating problems within Excel due to their very large size. So that solves a number of those problems. A few tips and tricks I would give you. One is the CSV upload and download process still exists. If you're doing an initial load of a large number of inspections for the very first time, then and you have that data in another system, then that CSV process is the best process to do that. Creating a XML file is something that can really only be done by an automated system, and editing that XML file is really not recommended. I'd almost say don't do it under any circumstances unless you are very, very knowledgeable and experienced. The CSV file is the way to go if you want to edit it in an Excel type format. Other than that, I really think this is going to be really useful for those people who want to move specific inspections between systems. It's exactly what it's designed for, and does a really great job. I've already used it myself and highly recommend it as the correct process going forward.
Thanks, Carl. So the next topic is also around inspections, and this is another key feature request that's been made by a number of customers, and that is to allow you for what I'd call reasonably simple question types to answer the inspection in the list rather than access each one individually in a dialog box. It's best to show this rather than talk about it, so let's go and take a look at that now. So here I am in BlueWorx. I'm just going to go straight into an asset record. And I've just set up a demonstration inspection here. And you can see instead of showing the values and responses in the list, I now have the opportunity for some questions to answer it in the list without moving to the dialog. The first one, because it has a graphic, or if it was a table, is requiring me that I answer it here. But for all the other questions, I can just answer in list. Now, if the answers in any of these cases go and trigger follow-on actions like creating of notifications, then that will still be triggered. And at any stage, even though you're answering in a list, you can drill in and see the additional text details. Carl, any feedback on that?
Yeah, this one's been asked for a little while. We've been talking about doing this, and it's good to see it, and I guess provided in such a user-friendly way. We have a number of customers who have the types of inspections where they are basically checklists, and you can see in this particular example that you've got here, Craig, the yes, no type questions are ideally suited for checklists, where you want a user to just go down and say, yes, I've done this, yes, I've done this, yes, I've done this, to get positive validation that they've done it. And we talked about this for a little while now. We were always worried that the rules engine would not move through into this type of screen. And I'm really glad to see that coming through as well. So that's a really important point. If you have rules that hide, make questions mandatory, those sorts of things, they still apply to the screen and you can still use those, so there's no functionality being removed.
Good point.
That's really key, and my expectation is this is one of the key features that I've been hearing from users that know Support Pack 12 is coming, that they're really looking forward to. It really reduces the number of clicks. I don't think BlueWorx could ever have been said previously it wasn't user-friendly, but this just takes it up to a whole new level in terms of reducing the number of clicks an average user needs to do, especially where they've got large numbers of inspections with lots of questions.
Yeah, good point, Carl. And just going back to your previous comment on the use of CSV versus XML, if you're wanting to maybe turn some of your simple questions in mass to use this functionality, then a good way to do that would be to export in CSV, go through, filter your list, and then mark on the column for response and list and upload those in your test system. Test them out and then move forward to your other systems as required. So again, on inspection questions, some customers have inspection processes that require additional data to be taken to the device or special calculations that need to be undertaken during an inspection. So while we've delivered multiple response types, the possibilities for these type of special customer questions and logic are always going to exist. So what we've done is refactor the way in which the inspection question dialog is technically delivered, even for our own standard question types, to provide a sound framework for customers to deliver their own. So Carl, you've seen this firsthand in real-world scenarios where something like this has been required. Give us an outline on that, please.
Yeah, sure. So we've implemented this functionality in a couple of customers just recently, both utility customers that have power poles. In the power pole industry, we have very specific requirements around measuring the strength of a pole. So the standard business process there is users go out and assess the strength of those poles whilst they're potentially offline. They need to put in a number of parameters about the pole and decide whether they're going to condemn the pole, i.e. replace it, or whether the pole is good for another 5 or 10 year period until it gets next inspected. The calculations are quite complex. Round poles involve some trigonometry and some algebra and a number of parameters in which to do those calculations. In the case of those customers, we've used this functionality, created custom questions and also some customization and what it updates in the back end. And it's enabled them to take the standard BlueWorx application and extend it in such a way that during future upgrades, that those extensions should go through seamlessly, and also done it in a way that they haven't had to make any changes really to the core BlueWorx code, which is I guess what we aim for. We can see lots of different examples in different industries as this becomes available. All of you have some very special assets that have some very special requirements, and we now have given you a method of meeting those requirements in a standard approved way of adjusting and creating your own code within BlueWorx. So this is a fantastic result. Not a lot to demo because it relies on you using it in your own use case. But when you've got that use case, it makes it nice and easy to do it.
Excellent. Thanks, Carl. Okay, so the next is around configuration for BlueWorx. So prior to this release, we had one set of core configuration settings, and it applied to all BlueWorx users. And while some of those settings will now remain at a global level, we've introduced the concept of configuration profiles so that different roles or operational areas or groups of users can operate differently and according to your business needs. So the examples here explain that well. You could have orders that use different logic to determine how they're allocated to personnel, or you could have one group of users that has access to options, for example, status updates that are not appropriate for others to have. So let's take a look at how that works. So I'm in the administration application. This is not for the end users, but for BlueWorx administrators. And if I come into maintain core settings, which was an existing tile before, I now have this concept of config profiles. And at the moment, it's displaying that's the view that I'm on at the moment is my config profile. So I selected that. And as I move into the settings area, I can see for different areas whether the settings are going to have an impact at a global level, as identified by this blue area, or specific to this configuration profile, i.e. at this level. So in this case, I've said that the order assignment for anyone that gets assigned this configuration profile will be using type 1, which is person responsible at the order head level. And that may be appropriate, for example, if I have, specifically directing engineers by name to go out and do something. At another level, I may have, for example, contractors who work collectively under their own supervision underneath a work center. And so I could use a different assignment type and a different profile type for them. Now, in terms of the download functionality for this, we allow you to download the current profile or all of the profile information. So if you're making changes in your test system to just one profile, you can more precisely go and take that, having tested it, and move that up into your production system. Carl, thoughts on that?
Yeah, when we initially started this development, we had a very specific use case, and it has expanded beyond then. Like all good functionality, you realize you can use it for far more than you originally intended. The original intent for this was those very large organizations that have multiple business divisions. And we've got customers, for example, who may have an oil and gas division and a power generation division. And because they're fundamentally different businesses, they have different requirements and different business processes. Like Craig pointed out, once we got into the detail of this, we realized it was far more powerful than we were originally envisaging. And we can also separate different profiles for different personas or groups of users. And he gave the great example there of contractors versus non-contractors, supervisors versus non-supervisors. We can make, for example, statuses available or not available for certain users. And an example there would be a supervisor who may be able to approve a work order or verify a work order, and that same status may not be given to a technician who executes the work order. Like always, our customers see these functionalities and come up with even more ways of using it, and we're looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Thanks, Carl. So the next area, I don't have any demonstrations for, but I'll just talk through it. And as I mentioned in the intro slides, this is one of those areas that a lot of work has gone into with not a lot visibly that we can show. So the first is around processing master data records derived from user profiles. We've changed that to make the evaluation and data gathering en masse rather than individually, and as a result, some significant improvements to the jobs that do that. The second area is around profiles, where we have removed taking the parent record for functional locations and equipment covered in the profile, thereby reducing the complexity and resource required to determine the assets for a profile. It was always a very tricky scenario to determine whether the equipment or functional location was being downloaded on its own merits or whether it was by association to another asset. And lastly, we've improved the program that some customers use to generate inspections in SAP, and that now runs better. Carl, some comments on these, please.
Yeah, so this improvement is a great example where we're continuously improving the existing code to make it better, faster. Some of you won't notice a difference here, so a number of you don't have performance issues with these programs in your existing system. There are a number of you, however, that have very, very large data volumes, and you'll notice significant improvements. So you know who you are if you've got those very large data volumes. The other point we've got here is there is some recognition that this may be able to be backported to previous versions, and Craig's got that on the slide. If you're on those versions, I will be in contact with you when that becomes available. There is still some work to be done there. There is one functionality here in Support Pack 12 that we do need to make you aware of, the profile generation improvements, which means we no longer automatically take parents of function locations and equipment. That may affect some profiles in terms of what data is taken to the device, and so testing will need to be done for those people that rely on that functionality, and the profiles changed to include those through other methods than that automatic movement of that data. a lot of people that won't have any impact, but we just need to be aware of it. It's something we do very rarely, where we'll affect the operation of an existing system through an upgrade. So we'll work through those people who are upgrading to make sure if that affects you that we've adjusted those profiles, or if it doesn't affect you.
Okay, so the next area is around spatial functionality. In this release, we've provided the ability to preload map, tile, and layer data from Esri and populated by Esri experts, and to replace the mobile map database in BlueWorx with these entries. So you populate a database and then you distribute that to users, and they can, if they're allowed to, they can manually go and replace their existing map database with this data. What that means is that you can get offline maps for pre-populated areas faster and without the need to download them on sync for work order assets. In addition, now when you're moving around in a map online, we check to see if a map tile exists for the location and layer that you're looking at in the local database before we attempt to download. And where it's not and we do download it, we now automatically add it to the map database. So the overall outcome is that over time, the required map tile downloads will reduce. And finally, in this area, we've allowed you to configure options for using Esri layer definitions and to query them. The explanation for this is better shown than talked about, so let's take a look at that now. So here I am in BlueWorx. I'm going to go into the map area, and I'm located in the central business district above Auckland. I'm in the layers, and I'm going to turn on a layer for Auckland Council road signs. So it's retrieving these in real time from an Esri server. And as you could expect, there's a lot of road signs. Now, if I turn that layer off and choose the option below it, this one's been configured to only take signs that have a category of RP5. So it's the same Esri layer, but it now has a query in it that reduces the return data specific to whatever it is that you need. Carl, some comments on those three areas, please.
So this has come out of a number of customers who have layers with lots of different data on them in the Esri system. Previously, the answer when they tried to solve this problem was actually in the Esri system to create multiple different layers. That's doable, but obviously not ideal, and not what we want to do is create additional data in the Esri system just to service BlueWorx. So that's a great change, enabling that simplification for future implementations, but also for those customers that have had to do that, they can now remove those layers and use this query information. The other thing I do want to talk about briefly is the side loading of maps. The functionality that's been provided by the product is enabling you to load that map, but it doesn't provide the specific functionality for you to extract those maps to start off with from your Esri system. We have done that for one of our customers, and we have a process for doing that if you need assistance. Be aware that you do need to run a product such as FME. For those of you who are familiar with Esri will know what FME is. To extract that data and put it in the correct format to go into BlueWorx. We have experience doing that, and we have a GIS team within Accenture/SAG that can assist you with that if you're not comfortable doing that yourself. You don't need to use us, but I always recommend that you at least talk to us, and we can provide some advice as to what we did and how we did it to enable that process to work seamlessly. It can be very, very large volumes of data if you're going to sideload maps, and that does need to be treated with some care just due to the volumes that will be associated with that process. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, and before we move on, a special shout out, I should have mentioned it before, to the customer who inspired this one. The functionality that we've delivered, we did a few extra things than what they did, but certainly they worked through the challenges and the original scope of how this might perform, and it worked out well for them. So this is one of those things that we've added into standard. Okay, and so the final area to talk about is around crew. Crew is an optional component of BlueWorx, and it's intended for use by supervisors to help them see and manage work within their assigned work centres for their crew. It's not about overall resource planning or levelling. It's really around managing the work on the ground for their people. So the major change that we've done is we've moved the functionality for crew into the My Work area. And that allows us to better expose the functionality delivered in recent releases like filters to these crew supervisors. We haven't stopped there. We have made a number of improvements around how we display the information, how you can filter the information, and how you can initiate changes to assigned personnel for all the various assignment types that we support. So let's go and take a look at that now. So here we are in BlueWorx, and the first thing that some of you may notice is that I have, as a crew supervisor, I have a split in the sums from my work, a 3 and an 8. What that's telling me is I have 3 work orders that are assigned to me, and I have 8 for the crew that I supervise. Not much of a workload, but this is a development system after all. When I access the work, the default view, if I don't have any filters applied, is to show my work. So here's the 3 orders that I saw, and from those 3 orders I have 10 inspections and 2 components. If I move into my filters area, this is where I can access the crew mode. I can turn that on. I can additionally filter it by just saying show me the orders that don't have any assignment, or I can filter it to just look for work that has been assigned to specific individuals. When I apply this filter, you'll see that the order list grows from the 3 before now to 8. The number of inspections has also increased, and the number of components has also increased as well, allowing me to go and make sure that all the parts and requirements for the job that my crew are undertaking are in. Some of the other changes is, depending on what level of order assignment you're at, will allow you to make assignments to individuals. So in the profile that I have applied at the moment, I've got assignment at the header level. And so if I click on the assignments tab, I can go through and say that Carl's going to do this work, and I'll work with him on that as well and just apply it. So I no longer have to drill into the order. I can, but I no longer have to do that to see the assignments. And I can see that it has a little checkbox there now showing that I have assigned some people. So it just makes it just that much easier to use. I have a look at the crew tab, which only displays if I have crew assigned, and then I get a list of my crew members by work center, and I can drill into other features. These are features that were previously in crew. I can see, for example, the latest status updates that they've made against orders that have been synced. I can see where they were when they last synced. I can filter the calendar view. I can phone them or text them if I'm on a mobile device. And there's also a capacity plan view, if you've got that activated within BlueWorx, that allows you to get a graphical representation of the work and capacity that's available for your assigned work centers. There's a lot of green here. No maintenance organization would have that much capacity available. Once again, we're in a demo system. So, Carl, feedback on that?
Yeah, so fantastic new functionality. That's a great example. I think we're constantly trying to improve the user interface, and this is a big leap forward from a user interface point of view. The item that I hear most often from our customers is that ability to adjust the assigned person directly from the list, once again, reducing the number of clicks. Always good to see a user interface that enables people to click less. So I know a number of customers that have specifically asked for that, and they'll be looking forward to seeing that functionality. And also the new user interface across the whole thing.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. So that concludes the presentation for today. Hope you like what you've seen, and you can see how that could provide value to your operations. There's a lot of information that's available on the new and improved features on our support site, and I encourage you to go in and have a look there. As with every support pack release, I want to give a special thanks to you, our customers and partners that are watching this, who've provided the inspiration for many of the new and improved features in this release, and to acknowledge that SAP is the foundation for what all this is built on, and we've enabled its delivery to mobile devices using Neptune software. Carl, last word is for you.
Thank you. So I'd also like to make a thank you to Craig and his team. They've done a fantastic job again, as per usual, in delivering a new support pack. Lots of great functionality that many of our customers are very excited to have deployed at their site. We've got it at one customer already, and a number of other customers planning on kicking off upgrades to this version in the very near future. If you haven't talked to anyone in the BlueWorx consulting team or your BlueWorx partner about going to Support Pack 12 and you're interested, please reach out to them. We can work with you in the process of moving. It is a process that does need to be managed properly. However, I think this version, as much as any other version, is something that I think a lot of people are ready to move to as quickly as possible.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.